welcome to our conversation on the Morning Crossfire. And this morning, we heard the president speak. It was a fine broadcast. At least, first we start with the fact that it ran smoothly. It was recorded clearly. That wasn't live. Many people expected that it would be live, but it wasn't. Still doesn't change the fact that the message that needed to be sent was sent by the president. Now, it is whether that was the message that Nigerians expected from the presidency. That's a whole different conversation. Well, we'll get into plenty of talks this morning. There is supposed to be a planned October 1 protest today, and hashtag fearless. We'll see how that goes. There's been talks of military being on standby, organizers of the protest saying, well, we don't need that. It could, make people apprehensive and all of that. But was the protest necessary is also a question many have asked. The minimum wage implementation is also another conversation we're going to have today. Ever since the agreement between Labour and the federal government, the hopes would be that the implementation would have taken swift implementation. Is that the case for people who received salaries this month? We'll find out. And CNG buses was given out yesterday. The program was test run, and NANS also got some of those buses. Well, we'll try to get in touch with the NANS president on the show this morning. Hopefully, he says a thing or two about that bus and what the intentions are. But in the meantime, I have live in the studio with me the NLC chairman in Rivers State, Mr. Alex Agwanwor. Sir, you're welcome, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew Femi, and good morning to all the listeners. Happy Independence to everybody.
Been quite a while since we had you live in the studio, so it's fantastic that you are here with us now. I'd like to start by saying Happy New Month and Happy Independence Day. We are 64 now.
Yeah, same to you.
What's Labour's perspective? I'm sure you listened to the president's broadcast. I don't know if you did.
I did, but not really.
Not everything.
Not everything. For me, it's just like a message of hope. Even when we are becoming too hopeless. For now.
You don't want to say too much?
I don't want to say much about it.
Well, but it's always something to say. I mean, you would have your perspective, even generally as a country.
Andrew, generally as a country, the only thing we're celebrating here is our unity. It's our unity. In terms of economy, politically, we are still struggling. Yeah. We are still backward. We are not where we are expected to be. So, and Nigerians presently now, you know what is going on in this country. There's a lot of hardship. People are going through pains. People are struggling to survive. So, you can see that if you go around the country today, you will see that people are not celebrating. And what you will see today might likely be like what you just mentioned, the protest. So to tell you that as a country, there's a lot to be done. And those in the arm of affairs, the leaders have a lot to do in order to reduce the current economic situation that have impacted negatively on the general masses of this country. So I think...
now that you mentioned the protest, is that something that Labour is in support of?
Well, we are not part of the protest, but everybody have the right to protest.
I mean, I had to ask because this was exactly the same response Labour gave for the earlier protest, the End Bad Governance protest. And then afterwards, we saw all that happened, and Labour alluded to the fact that some people were saying the NLC chairman was organizing the protest and all of that.
We never did. It's just an accusation. It's an allegation. We never did that. We are not against. Even before the protest, there was a statement released by the NLC that we are not part of the protest. We are not joining the protest. But the concerns are being raised by the End Bad Governance protesters are genuine concerns. And government should engage them. So those concerns should be addressed. So that has been our position even before the protest and after the protest. So that's the position. So
for this particular one, the same position still
that's still our position.
Anybody's free to protest, but
it's a right of
Nigerians to protest. Labour in itself is not organizing or...
No, we're not organizing anyone, but it's a constitutional right of Nigerians to protest.
So does that mean that you could be part of the protest as a Nigerian?
If we want to be part of the protest, we'll make it public. and we release a statement that we are going on protest.
So far?
So far, nothing like that, yeah.
So we take it that you're not participating in the protest as
No, for
Labour,
today,
because the protest is today?
We're not participating.
Okay. But do we see Labour in the future coming up to perhaps embark on any protest?
Sure.
What would be the reasons or circumstances that could lead up to that?
Well, you see, the current circumstances are just is a developing situation, which for us we are still monitoring, and we are still building our grievances, our facts and issues that will engage the government or whoever when we want to protest. So these issues are already there. For us, we are allowing time to develop more facts and more basis for any kind of protest in the future. And I think it will come.
It brings us then to, now that you say it's a developing situation, it brings us to the minimum wage, which is, I think, a very important one. Many would expect that we celebrate the Independence Day with new minimum wage alert, even though a lot of people still argue that, well, the inflation in the country at the moment would just mean that new wage means almost nothing. My question for you now is, first, has anybody received the new wage?
Well, for now, the minimum wage have not been implemented.
At all levels?
Even at all levels. Nobody have received.
So what happened with what the government said, even to core members, 77,000 core members, and then approval to pay the wage?
For this month of October, maybe it depends on for the federal government parastatals and civil servants who have concluded their own minimum wage negotiation. Hopefully this October they may begin to receive the minimum wage.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to understand this. When was, I know that we know, but I just want it to come from Labour. When was this agreement reached with the federal government for the new minimum wage signing? I think it's over 2 months.
Yeah.
The payment now, is it going to be from that time, or it's going to be from whenever they start paying?
The minimum wage as a stance, this take effect from April, 1st of April. That was the old one expired at 31st of March. So constitutionally. So, but the agreement reached by the federal government and organized labor at the federal level, the civil service level, was to take effect from 29th of July. That's when they started on effective date. But for the state councils, we have started engaging with our various governments, because it's not applied immediately what the federal government have done at the state level immediately. So the state councils are given the opportunity to go and negotiate and go and engage with various state governments regards to the minimum wage in the various state civil service workers. And that we are already doing at the state level. So the outcome of that may not likely be exactly what has happened at the federal level. It depends on the outcome of the engagement between we and the state government.
So if the federal government begins paying now, it doesn't mean
that federal government can say they want to pay for in July, and River State government can say want to start paying for what it is from 1st of April or May, depends on what we agreed. Any state, and whatever be the condition that the federal government have come up with in terms of consequential adjustments. Now, what I'm talking about mostly is about the consequential adjustments, because that is the major thing now. So, what is in addition for those who are already earning above the minimum wage? What are they getting in addition aside the 70,000 naira? So that is where the issue is now. That's where we are engaging the government on the minimum wage. So the outcome of that, and also the date of implementation, will also be agreed.
What indices are used to determine how much those who already are earning above the 70,000 naira minimum wage would get? Those who are on maybe level 4, level 5 will be different. What they would get will be different from those who are just coming into the civil service. Is there any indices that is used to make that calculation, or it's something that we just saw that retirees, the government had made a 32,000 naira increase to what retirees get. I don't know how factual that is. I was going to also ask you that question. Is there a particular indices used to substantiate what is added?
Well, for the minimum wage, there's a 70%. There's a 70,000 naira for the minimum worker.
Minimum worker, flat rate.
No, for other consequential adjustments, it's based on negotiation. We can say how many percentage that we're giving to the next level. Maybe if the minimum level got 70,000 naira and the other man is earning 80,000 naira, what do we add in addition?
To that person,
we decide to add 50% of it, 80%. It depends on what we agree.
Okay.
It's based on negotiation. So that cut across all the levels. So if you look at what even the federal pastor did, is based on that too. Even though for me, I have concern because that agreement was not really in favor of majority of the Nigerian workers. If you look at from the level 7, where you have the majority of the workers, working class at the civil service, to level 14, the percentage was not encouraging. I think
at the federal and state level.
At the federal level.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the state level, that's it. That we will engage and we'll see how.
The engagement at the state level, is this already on? And when was the last meeting?
We are talking, and we believe that soon as we will round up.
Now, and when was the last meeting with the government at the state level?
Well, we have started engaging. Last week we had a kind of a pre-meeting. Yeah, and. But after this independence, this local government election, we will start full engagement. Government is focused on this local government election now, and we don't want this to be a distraction. So after this Saturday will become a pass, then I think we'll move forward.
Is it possible that workers might not see this payment till maybe December?
It's not possible.
Or November first, so they get it November for the Christmas,
it's
or get
possible.
it December for the Christmas.
This
is already October. We're just 2 months. We're just 2 months away.
We'll do everything within our reach to speed the discussion, negotiation, and to make sure that River State workers benefit from it. If possible, before the end of this month, if we finish on time, or I don't think it will get to November or December. I believe that our robust relationship and engagement with the government will also facilitate the process.
All right, we'll take a few questions from the listener shortly. Those who are listening, get on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. That's our handle. You can follow us and let us know what you think about the president's Independence Day speech. Some people think he did not address the issues adequately enough. It was just, my guest says, he's just trying to give hope in a situation where many Nigerians are becoming very hopeless. We'll come back to that speech and pick out a few things that he highlighted, because he had also mentioned the minimum wage. And the thing is, it's still not being paid. Core members say they've still not been receiving their monies. And my guest has said, well, there is some sort of agreement that's independent of the federal government on how far back any of the states, including the federal government, would decide to start paying the new wage. Constitutionally, it should have started from April because the last one ended in March. So April would have been where the new one would begin from. But then negotiations are still on. How do you feel after hearing the president speak? Did you or are you persuaded that, well, they are on top of the situation and we might see things changing anytime soon? On WhatsApp, the number is 0809 030 6416. 0809 030 6416. Now, back to my guest. As it stands, does this minimum wage increase also involve, would it also consider the monies that retirees and pensioners will get? And can you confirm if the 32,000 naira addition that the government says for retirees is what it is?
Is it the federal government or state government?
Well, the federal government had said on one of the papers this morning that there's a 32,000 naira increase that was added to monies given to retirees. And I said, okay, fantastic. We're going to have you on the show today. So hopefully you would give us more insight into that, whether there's any news of such, where 32,000 naira will be added to the monies of retirees. Here it is. Minimum wage. Federal government raises retirees' pension by 32,000 naira.
That is very commendable and very encouraging, because if you look at the minimum wage, the retirees are not captioned on it. And the idea is that these retirees, after they have left service, what they are being paid has also been eroded by the economic situation in terms of the price of goods and services. So there needs to consider them also. So if we say that we want to maintain, pay them something to keep living, then we have to also consider the economic situation by adding something to what they are earning.
All right.
I think we really commend the federal government for that.
All right, let's take a commercial now. When we come back, we continue with this. Stay with us. conversation continues on the morning crossfire. And Alex Agwanwor, the NLC chairman in Rivers State, is still with us here in the studio. I know that plenty of us listening have quite a lot to say, and we'll get the opportunity to make those contributions as we forge ahead on the show. My name is Ifeabi Andrew, and we are live on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. We also are live on YouTube at Nigeria Info PH, and you can also join us using the WhatsApp number 0809-030-6416. You heard the President's Independence Day address. The question now is, did it give you any hope that the government is on top of the situation and we just, according to the president, begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel? That's what we want to know. How you feel about what the president said in his address. On that note, I'll come back to my guest in the studio. A lot has been said about the minimum wage. And if you followed, it clearly means from everything that we have heard that workers might still not get that minimum wage paid to them this month, even though my guest has not authoritatively said it. From the things he has said, is it possible to believe that October might not be possible to get for workers to receive the new minimum wage if we look at the process involved in implementation?
Okay, let me just start with the delay. I think what has caused this delay is the data. We're waiting for data table from the Incomes and Wages Commission and what should be the consequential adjustments. And that came out about late September. And after the agreement between the federal government and organized labor. So, you see, and that should be the template basis for the state councils to start engaging the various state governments. And, this minimum wage is not like it's not a straitjacket thing. It's something that we have to engage. The federal government workers, based on what the outcome of their discussion, the agreement, they may likely receive this month of October. But for most state governments who have started engaging now, it depends on that engagement, when we finish the engagement, which I said earlier, that for us here, we are very hopeful that we'll have a fruitful and a very successful engagement, having known the fact that even before now, the governor has made a statement, even on the Workers' Day, and have insisted that whatever be the outcome of the minimum wage, that's going to implement. So it's just for us to meet and look at the areas where we need to do one or two this thing, and from there, I think we'll move on. So we are very hopeful, and we are very. In fact, we thank God for the kind of governor we had in Rivers State. His Excellency Emonefe. He's a very labor-friendly governor. You remember just a few days ago, he raised the service years for teachers from 35 to 40 and from 60 to 65 years. He also put additional 1 billion to already existing 1 billion, making it 2 billion to make sure that pensioners' gratuities and payments are all cleared. So I think that's to tell you the kind of governor we have in Rivers State, and we really commend that. And for us, we hope that even the workers in the civil service will not be left out. That the governor will do something that will make everybody happy.
What then is the situation for private sector? I mean, the minimum wage would also influence the private sector. Is Labour having conversations with organized private sector, with NECA, to see how in the private area this is also well implemented?
The private sector, the issue we have in private sector, I'm from the private sector, for us, we don't really wait for the minimum wage. That's the truth. Yeah. It's like a minimum wage is like a basis for every private sector. You don't pay your worker less than this amount. But honestly, most private sector workers earn above that and have this continuous negotiation increase per year. Not necessarily waiting for 5 years, 3 years. So the case is different because we keep on engaging our management on every year. Like I'm telling you, for me now, for my own company, I've had increment like 3 times this year. Even not waiting for the minimum wage. even more than what the outcome of minimum wage is. I've got increased more than that. So nobody is talking about minimum wage at the private sector, except those that are paying less. What to look for for the person are the companies, organizations that are paying less than the minimum wage. They're paying the workers less than that. That is where we have more focus. But in terms of negotiating the increase, I think it's something that most unions are engaging in the private sector, are engaging their various management on, even before now. It is a continuous process.
All right, let's open the phone lines. Before we do, one more thing. I'd like to take us back to the Independence Day speech by the president. You heard part of it. You have seen what the government is. How would Labour look at the situation? Are you confident? And can you say that, well, from what we heard and what we are seeing, well, things are going to improve? Because the president sounded very hopeful that, we're already beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And he's aware of the high cost of living and all of that. Even went as far as saying a confab would be set up for youths, and they would engage the youths for that confab, and the outcomes of whatever the confab produces would be implemented. Talked about honors that would be given to some Nigerians. Said the list would be made public soon. But economically, that's where many people wanted to have an idea of. For Labour, are you satisfied? What message would you say you got out of what the president said today?
Like I said earlier, it's a kind of message of hope. But me and you knew that things are not going really well in this country. Economically, Nigeria is not doing well. And most of the policies that have been implemented by the government have impacted negatively on the masses. Right, for the pump price, when the subsidy was removed, even though we now came to find out they are still paying subsidy, even up till now. Even the measures of Dangote refinery, that is expected to reduce the price of PMS, since we're already producing locally. We are still paying more than when we are importing. So you see, it's only a layman, a blind man that will tell that things are. Even a blind man says, this country knows that Nigeria is not well. So what the president is doing is a kind of message of hope, and we believe that we hope that things get better as soon as possible, because people are becoming very uncomfortable. People are becoming restless. I watched online a video where a young man climbed down 33 kVA electric high tension. Say will not come down until Tinubu leave the seat. That is the level of frustration Nigerians are going through right now. That is it.
Well, we are also aware that there's a planned protest for today. My guest has said Labour is not participating in that protest as Labour, but is there the possibility of maybe you going and seeing what the protest is like as a Nigerian?
If I'm not participating, why am I going there?
All right, so you heard Labour would not be participating in that protest. Security personnel have been deployed by the government to ensure that nobody breaks the law. Will this protest hold as planned? That is something we'll get to find out later on. In the meantime, on Facebook, Samson Orji says, I know Labour as a body that have never fought for those in the private sector and those doing business. It's all about civil servants. For the president's speech, provided he says nothing about fuel price, the speech is empty. Agwanwor says, Godwin Agwanwor says, to your guest, concerning this matter, I don't have any confidence in the broadcast of the president because it should exude hope and promises with plenty talks. What we Nigerians want is more work and proactive steps. Kingsley says, Independence Day speech of the president was empty and does not address the pressing need of the people, which is centered on the moribund refineries in the country. Gifting Serim says it is crystal clear the federal government is insensitive to the plight of the masses. Instead of addressing the yearnings of the masses, they are deploying soldiers to stop protest. 0817-923-0002 0817-923-0007. Again, 0817-923-0007 and 0817-923-0002. Some of the messages on WhatsApp, we'll see how many we can take. Jonas Venom says, good morning. The NLC in Rivers State is an arm of government. Officially, they are not. We get what you're saying, but just to clarify that, we have only 3 arms of government. They didn't fight for. They are not fighting for. They didn't fight for the payment of wage award announced by the federal government. Up to now, they have not sat with the state government for the payment of minimum wage for state workers. They have lost their unionism spirit. Well, unfortunately, if you had followed the conversation, you didn't include your name. You must have heard my guest says meetings have been held with the state government, and last week they even held a meeting with the state government because I was particular about what time, when was the last meeting, and he says last week, and that came because at the national level, meetings were concluded late September, towards the end of the month. Okay, so another one, this one's from Adaya. It says, this minimum wage thing is a scam. It's been over a year since the price of all commodity changed, and Nigerian workers are still languishing. This government is the worst in Nigeria's history, and all these praise singers, stop bringing them to the studio. Adaya says, Living News in Joko from Ichi says, the president's Independence Day speech portrayed this administration's insensitivity to the plights and economic hardship plaguing citizenry. He should have addressed the problem of refineries and how to mitigate the high cost of living in the country, which is a question I'm going to also get across to my guest. What is happening with the refinery? But first, let's go to Akrika and speak with Muriel. Good morning, Muriel.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Go on.
Look to me, I learned of some federal citizens have been paid. Honestly, the recalculation was not done. It was just like 40,000, 55, or something like that about this. And then please, to ensure that the recalculations are done at the level, I believe it level, maybe 12 level for paid staff will be any more than
Muriel, unfortunately, we can't get you clearly, but I think in bits, we can understand what you're trying to say. It wasn't very clear.
Can you now?
Yes, we can. Those people you say received them.
I learned that some citizens have been paid, and the recalculation was not done. So they said, I don't know, the minimum wage, the recalculation was not done. It was as if it just be 30, 55, 40,000 or added to their salary. So level will ensure that the recalculations are done. And for the state, I am sure that next month, this month we're in, the minimum wage will be paid. I'm very, very sure. The actual minimum wage, not just people as salary.
All right, so thank you. Mira, I think another thing that's important to notice, those people who say they received little addition, let's know how much were they receiving before. Whatever they were receiving before, was it below 70,000? Because if there is a structural adjustment, it means if you were receiving 80,000 before, you can't be expecting a minimum wage because you were already above. I don't know if I'm correct, Mr. Alex.
Yeah.
So it would mean that the structural adjustment would now determine whether they will add 30,000 to you or 40,000 to your 80,000. And then when they add that, you now have maybe 100 and something thousand as the money you're supposed to receive. While those people who are just coming into the service, the least they can get is 70,000 naira. So that's something we would also try to clarify.
That's for level one.
That's for level one. Buguma, George is in Buguma. Good morning.
Andrew, good morning to you. Let me greet the studio here this morning. Thank you for bringing us to another one. Yes, I want to say that, Andrew, have you seen a man who is over hungry before he's even starting what he wants to eat? Already the hunger has deep into his fabric.
George, it's not very clear. We can't get you.
I know where I'm going. Just give me time. That is the what I'm saying is that Nigerians are so blessed in the midst of this message because the hunger has deep into their fabric. And when you see a man who is over hungry, and when he's eating, it is like a madman. And that is the situation. You can see a man climbing transformer there at the Tinubu manipulation and intimidation and oppression, because all these things are put together. You are not treated the matter for us. You are telling us how you will do this, how you will do that. The one that is before us, the one the government wants to hear today, is that you have fixed the refineries and now the pump prices are low. People can afford it. And services begin to.
All right, George. I think we get your point, though. Although we were struggling to hear you properly, but we get what you're saying. We'll go to Remo Dumaya. Bright is on the line.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning.
Good morning.
My question to the Labour chairman. But minimum wage has been approved into law about 2 months now. How come they are not need to concern all these families and whatever? They are waiting till December or till next year. Because as a chairman, they want to meet the state government and agree based on the template because this thing is good. So how come they were waiting? And here you talk about for the government election. Election that some senators think it will not vote or it will not work based on a court decision. Do you think the election is not hold this week that the governor will also want to listen to them? This is the part of human life. The workers have been suffering up till now, and our approach has been given to the state government. The minimum have not been paid. And government should say that among the first to pay. And you want people to tell it to pay. Why not start paying? This is what we need to do as a government. So
all right. Okay, Bright.
That's my question.
Thank you very much. But I think we also need to understand, like the state government cannot just start paying if there had not been the wage commission at the federal level had not done its homework. That needs to be done. It was the reason why we had to have you here, so we get the explanations clearly. And then I will let you explain again. Perhaps those people that did not get it will understand, because I've been saying every day, every other day, that I don't think that the states would start paying immediately after federal government starts paying for what, because they would have to have their own meetings and then sit down and look at, okay, how do we go about this? But that aside, my friend Bright, was it Bright? I can't remember his name. Please, the state government has said election is holding on the 5th of October. RISEC has said election will hold on the 5th of October. Let's please move with that information. Until the 5th of October, if election does not hold, then you can come out and say it did not hold. All right? Just so that we don't put out an information that was not out there by the authorities conducting the election, which is RISEC. Chima is another. Hello. George, good morning.
Morning, Andrew.
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, Andrew, my primary concern is not about Labour, because Labour they did not do anything to have negotiations, because I heard them say that the president betrayed them. And so I thought they were going to back their work with action. After I said the president betrayed them, the fuel increase went up. But my primary concern is the statement made by the president, which for me I see as an empty statement. You understand? So if you look at everything the president has said, we understand that the president has not even mentioned the thing. So it's even causing the economic crisis. It's about it. You understand? I don't know why Labour is all about. I've said here before that Nigeria should not put their hope on Labour. You understand? Labour are heavily affected with whatever is happening. But with what Labour has even managed the situation, we've been in the midst of suffering, I even good to go. So I want to ask Labour leader, your part of your counterpart, I mean the junior ones, who are not being put in any, are you considering right now? Because they are affected with current economic crisis. You understand? Because we haven't seen it looks like Labour leader does not care what is happening in the country. You understand? The last time you mentioned that you were betrayed, Nigeria has watched if you can be able to take action. So the fact that have not done anything.
All right. Okay, Chima. Thank you. Barry in Bori, that will be the last call we'll take on the show. Then we come back to my guests. We'll wrap up. Letan Barry, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning to your guest.
Good morning, Leighton.
Yes, when it comes to this minimum wage, I think I'm always hopeful because of the kind of governor we have in River State. I'm always pleased because I know when it comes to attending to workers' issue, the governor is 100% in position to see that every worker gets what due them. But I just want to ask this question because your guest has been emphasizing on the agreement based in federal. Then they will come to the state and also see how they can put it on ground. I want to ask if the discussion with the state government is agreed and whatever system that we use in play, because I know it will be very productive and impactful to the workers. Will this also be applicable to the local government workers? Because workers also have one kind of administration that is not possible of. So if the agreement reached with state will it be applicable to the AGA? Because whatever that is applicable, whatever is agreed is to the state.
At the local level. All right, Leighton Barry, get your question. Thank you. Let's quickly come to my guest. Also add to that, how is the Labour ensuring that schools, private schools especially, how are they going to ensure that the teachers that work there and the staff there earn the minimum wage?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with Leighton. Leighton, thank you very much. I think you raised that's one of the questions I wanted people to ask. What about the local government? We're talking about state government. Honestly, I think if not for all of these delay processes, like wages and commission boards, I think for River State, implementation would have started for a very long time. Because having the kind of governor we have in River State, like Leighton mentioned, would have started this implementation before now. Because the governor was so willing, so eager to do that. But we have to wait for this process so there'll be a basis for engagement. So, for the local governments, I want to also say that, last time we had a very serious issue. And that also comes to my mind. I said that when we are going to, we told our workers, and I will still emphasize it, as we are going for the local government election, they should be very wise to vote people that will pay them their wages, people that will promote them, people that implement the minimum wage, not chairmen that will go there and will sit against the workers' welfare. If not for the intervention of the governor, all that happened, by now, even the 30,000 will not be implemented up till now. Because the previous outgoing chairman did not pay the minimum wage up to April, even this year. So you see, it's a very terrible thing at the local government level. So I believe that with the synergy we are working now within the state and local government, I think the minimum wage, whatever applied in the state, will be replicated at the local government. We will ensure that we will follow up that process. Okay. We want to assure the local government workers that will follow up that process.
What about private schools?
For the private schools, I think after we agree, we're going to set up implementation committee who is going to go around to monitor implementation at the state level, which the private schools are going to be part of the places we're going to visit, to make sure that everybody working in those schools are paid above the minimum wage. Nobody will be paid below. So these are things we are going to do to ensure that there's compliance at the private schools. Not only private schools, other private sector areas will feel that there may be some level of non-implementation. We'll also look at it. And that's what the committee will come out with. They look at areas, sectors that we need to visit and make sure that there's compliance.
All right. Mr. Agwanwor, we'll have to wrap it up here. Thank you very much. We don't have all the time. Let's see if we can take a few more messages on Facebook. Tamunai Tekena says, please ask the chairman what both labor unions are doing to ensure that this time the monthly pension of pensioners increases as the minimum wage for civil servants increases. I think we touched on this before as well. And the announcement by the federal government of an added to the 2,000 naira. But the presidential broadcast this morning is nothing to write home about. Fidelis Elemoa said that one. Well, gentlemen and women and all of you listening out there, thank you very much. Hello Port Harcourt comes up with Jude. Happy Independence Day. Thank you again, Mr. Alex.
Thank you.
My name is Ifeemi Andrew. Good morning.
You are tuned in to Nigeria